The Ghana Institute of Foresters has called on government to, as a matter of urgency, withdraw Executive Instrument 144, that de-reserved portion of the Achimota Forest Reserve. Now, in a statement, the Institute says there are ways to generate revenues from the forest while maintaining its ecological integrity, suggesting an eco-park idea. Now, they say that the destruction of the forest reserve can have a very devastating effect on the environment and human life. Let's get more on this. Join us for a conversation now is Dr. Abubakar Natongba Atta. He's president of the Ghana Institute of Foresters. I also have Dr. Paul Oseitu. He's senior lecturer at KNUST Faculty of Renewable Natural Resources and executive member of the Ghana Institute of Foresters. Thank you for your time, gentlemen, here on The Pulse. Now, I'll start with you, Dr. Abubakar, because you're raising concerns, Abubakar, because you're raising concerns about Ghana's forest reserves. And you say that not only the Achimota Forest is threatened. Tell us more.
Thank you very much, Madam. If you watch our Forest Law, Section 2D of the Forest Act 1927, Cap 157, it states that our forest reserves were deliberately for the purposes that include safeguarding water supplies, sustaining ecological integrity, and the forest microclimate needed for cocoa production and sustaining timber production. If you observe that cocoa production and timber production are our...
Doc, I seem to be having an interference. You might have to turn off the television set from where you are right now. That way we can hear you clearly. You were just telling us about Ghana's ecology laws. Tell us more about that. I'm sure now I have clearer connection to you. You would have to unmute at this point so that I can hear you. If you just tuned in, we're discussing the de-reserving of parts of Achimota Forest. I can hear you loud and clear now. Doc, you have the floor. Please make your point.
Yes, I was saying that looking at our forest laws, Section 2D of the Forest Act 1927, Cap 157, it stipulates that our reserves were deliberately for purposes that include safeguarding water supplies, sustaining ecological integrity, and the forest microclimate needed for cocoa production and sustaining timber production. And I'm saying that both cocoa and timber are our major foreign exchange earner. And if we decide to clear our forests, the microclimate that is needed for cocoa production will not be achieved. Timber production too, if we decide to clear the forest, then we won't even get any timber to export. Fortunately, the EU came with a voluntary partnership agreement, which was signed in 2007 and ratified in 2009, for us to protect our forests so that we could get legal timber coming from the reserves. But now, with this EI 144, it's saying that Achimota should be cleared, the forest there should be cleared and used for other purposes, such as construction of buildings, shopping malls, and all those kind of things, which is not going to give us anything better. And it also defeats our UN Sustainable Goals and Development, Section 15, which talks about protection of the environment and mitigating the climate changes that we all are calling for. Now, if you look at the Achimota Forest, it is the only green belt that is in the center of Accra. And it's able to absorb carbon from the pollutions that we have from both human activities and vehicular pollution. Now, let me also emphasize that a tree absorbs 21 kilograms of carbon dioxide oxide per annum. And look at the number of trees that are there and the pollution that is going on in Accra. So if we decide to come and fell all these trees, what are we talking about? Now, many people may not see what GIF is saying, but until we get some diseases, respiratory diseases, where we'll be asked to buy oxygen bottles, that is where we'll get to know that there's a need for us to preserve this Achimota forest.
Already, the air we breathe in urban areas, most experts would say, are already polluted to a large extent. You are spelling doom for the country moving forward. You also say in your statement that apart from the Achimota Forest, there are other forest reserves in Ghana that are threatened by infrastructural aspirations. Tell us more about these other areas.
Yes. So if you go to Tamale, the GES plantation, the waterworks plantations, and Winneba Waterworks Forest Reserve, Guaku Forest in Pokuasi, Tamale Waterworks Forest Reserve, etc. So if these forests are cleared, you can imagine the population that is growing in this kind of areas and the pollution that is being carried on. You realize that very soon we'll have respiratory problems, and which we will need more money in our hospitals to cure these things. So the best for us is to safeguard this forest by not allowing these reserves to be cleared.
Now, government in its defense says that we're living in a society where urbanization has put a lot of strain on our resources. We currently have a housing deficit which government is struggling to fix because we have a lot of people moving to urban centers. How do you then propose we fix this problem?
Yeah, so why are people moving from rural areas to urban areas? The question is, there are no jobs in the rural areas. So what the government can do is to create more jobs in the rural areas to curb the urban and rural migration to the urban areas. The housing deficit is not, the clearing of Achimota Forest is not a solution to this urban drift. They will continue to come, especially when we don't have jobs in the rural areas for the people to stay and work. Now, if the government wants, agric is the most important thing that every community finds itself. If they can increase agriculture, like the food and planting for jobs that they initiated, I think it will help to curb the rural urban migration that they are talking about clearing Achimota. But that is even going to be a temporary solution. What is the acreage of Achimota Forest left now? It's about 306 acres. So are they telling us that if they clear this Achimota Forest and put even skyscrapers, the rural urban drifts, they think that people can come and occupy and we will have housing problem solved? That is not it. So they should either look at other ways and preserve this our green belt for our future generation.
Let me bring in Dr. Paul Osetutu at this point in time, because we have just been educated on the health implication of the de-reserving of some of our key forest reserves. Expatiate on that for us, please.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity to address the public on this important matter. So, those of us from the Ghana Institute of Foresters, we hold our urban forest in such a high extent because we know what they do for the quality of the urban air. Urban areas continue to have increasing numbers of cars, and each car on the urban road on daily basis is polluting the urban air. And let me just make an analogy most of us can relate to. So during the times of doom, so when people were using lots of generators, occasionally we hear that somebody goes to bed and doesn't wake up in the morning because the person had running generator in their room for the fear of theft. So obviously the fumes from generators and cars, they are not good for us. And yet we are having increasing numbers of cars in the urban air polluting on a daily basis. Why we are not falling dead as we walk in the urban environment is because the concentration of the pollutants have not reached levels where people may fall dead. But they could reach those levels. It's already happening in some countries. Lots of Chinese, Beijing being an example. The air quality has deteriorated to points where at times the government will have an alert. People have to wear masks because the concentration of the urban of the pollutants in the urban air is so high. In Ghana, we have not reached there because we have all these urban plants cleaning the urban air. So that is why the urban forest is to us. And we need to keep it because we don't want to wait for the concentration of the. We can't say we are going to stop driving cars. And most of this, particularly the public transport cars, they emit all these dark fumes in the air. Because they appear, the fumes appear to disappear. We cannot assume. Nobody really thinks about where the fumes go. It merely diffuses into the urban air. And over time, the quality of the urban air keeps going down. It's unfortunate nobody checks this. It's even possible it's not even safe in some parts of the city. But we have this urban vegetation helping to clean the air. And it's very vital to us. And it's a service we don't want to lose, particularly from the Achimota Forest we are discussing right now.
Thank you, Dr. Paul Osei Tutu, for joining us here on The Pulse.